Welcome back to Lavender City. In this video, we're going to bring you 3 Tinder horror stories that will shock and awe us all. Without further ado, let's jump into story 1. Story 1. I remember the first time I met him. We were talking on Tinder, and he seemed so different than the other guys I had been talking to. He was attractive, of course, but he also seemed really vanilla, like he didn't smoke or drink or do anything wild. It was actually kind of refreshing, and I found myself drawn to him. We started texting, and it quickly became clear that we had a lot in common. He was close to his family, especially his grandfather, and wanted to be a meteorologist when he grew up. We talked about our dreams and goals for the future, and it felt really good to connect with someone on that level. Eventually, we decided to meet up in person. We met in a nearby coffee shop. I would say the first couple of our dates went really good, and then we decided to go for ice cream and talked again a while. I remember we were sitting outside and discussing body parts that attract men and women. I made the comment about guys having obvious body parts to be attracted to women, while girls tend to look at more subtle features like calves. That is where he began to act weird. It was always a little strange when he could get that far-off look in his eye and start muttering to himself. I would prod him gently, trying to coax the story out of him. "What is it?" I asked him one day. "I don't know if I should tell you this," he said, looking at me with those big brown eyes. I knew he was going to tell me anyway, so I just waited patiently. "Well," he began slowly, "I've got a bit of a foot fetish." My eyebrows shot up in surprise, and I started peppering him with questions. Had he ever been in a serious relationship? Could he handle being with someone who wasn't into it? He shook his head. I couldn't help but think about our previous date, as he told me about his crush fetish. I had no idea what it was, but the fact that he warned me not to Google it made me all the more curious. He explained that there were 2 levels of the fetish. Level 1 involved becoming aroused by watching someone crush invertebrate animals under their feet, like bugs. Level 2 was watching someone crush vertebrate animals, like bunnies or kittens. I told him about how I'd been getting a lot more bugs in my room that summer, and so I'd been squishing bugs all day, and he said that it really got him going. We laughed and continued talking. I realized he wanted to know what kind of shoes I typically wear. I told him that I sometimes like to wear moccasins, but they make my feet smelly, so I try to avoid them. He told me that I got really turned on when you said that. "I'd love to smell your shoes if you'd let me." One of many very forward, very specific, and unwelcome statements about what turned him on about me. I was relieved when he finally stopped texting me and told him I had met someone else, and I didn't want to lead him on. A few months later, out of the blue, he started texting me again. He said he needed my help, and that he'd pay me if I let him do stuff with my feet. Story 2. I've been on Tinder for 2 days now, and it's already bringing me some interesting prospects. Tuesday morning, after matching with a girl named Jane who seemed pretty awesome, I started dating her. This was her first time using Tinder too. I suggested we meet up for a coffee date, but she invited me to a barbecue instead with her coworker. I wasn't sure if this was a good idea, but I decided to go for it anyway. After all, it's always better to meet someone in a more relaxed setting like a barbecue rather than a stuffy coffee shop. And plus, it would be a great opportunity to catch up with her former coworkers. I was so confused when she abruptly ended our conversation at the barbecue. I drove home wondering what I did wrong, but as soon as I got off the freeway, she texted me. She said, "You could have come over to my house if you asked." I told her I still could, and she sent me her address. I turned my car around and sped to her house. I was too certain that I was going to get some, so I really didn't care where she lived. It was the best part of town. She met me out front and greeted me as I walked up. As we were walking up the stairs to her door, she mentioned that she took in stray cats. "Oh really?" I asked her with mild interest. "Yeah, there are a lot of strays around here," she replied. As I walked up the steps to my date's house, I was trying not to think about how allergic I am to cats. I figured she probably didn't have too many of them, but as soon as I opened the door, I knew that I was in trouble. There were at least 15 cats lounging around the house. The smell hit me first as I walked through the door. It was thick and cloying, like a weight pressing down my chest. I tried to ignore it, but it was impossible. Whatever was causing that smell had to be close by. I turned the corner into the living room and saw them. At least a dozen pairs of eyes were staring at me before they all scattered like cockroaches when the light came on. As I walked into the house, I smelled something terrible. It was cat urine, and there were at least 15 stray cats in the room. The house was dark, and it looked like it was cluttered with garbage. The cats were perched on top of piles of trash, watching me. Jane quickly showed me her room, which smelled like bleach. I could smell it from a distance, and it started to make my nose burn. Jane mentioned that she had just cleaned the room and had scrubbed everything down with bleach. It seemed like a normal thing to do when you clean a room. Any sane person would have backed out by now, but I had come too far and my cock was way too hard to turn back now. We were both sitting on her bed, and she turned on Netflix. We started watching a movie that was really scary, and she got into the position of being the little spoon. I made some advances towards her during the movie, but she didn't respond at all. So after about 45 minutes of nothing happening, I told her I needed to go home and get some sleep because I had work the next day. She didn't argue or complain at all. She just got up slowly from where she sat with an exhausted expression plastered across her face. I wake up with my eyes so swollen and bloodshot that I can barely see. I stumble to the bathroom and catch a glimpse of myself in the mirror. My skin is red and covered in small bumps. My eyes are almost completely shut, and there's dried mucus all around my nose. I texted Jane about my cat allergy and didn't hear back from her. The next day, I had to call in sick to work and go to the doctor to get a prescription because the swelling hadn't gone down. Story 3. It was already 7 p.m. and I was getting a little bit nervous. I had been talking to this girl on Tinder for a few weeks, and she finally said she could come over. I had some pizza warming in the oven just in case she was hungry. For some stupid reason, I put the pizza in the box to warm in the oven. She wasn't hungry, so we jumped right into making out. Clothes got strewn everywhere as we headed back towards the bedroom. I went into the kitchen to turn the oven off, but left the pizza in there. We were getting hot and heavy on the couch when I heard a beeping noise. I lifted my head to see what it was, and she said, "I think it was a truck backing up." I wasn't really paying attention, so I went back to work. But then the beeping got louder and more persistent. She said, "I think we should go check on the pizza." I was definitely not in the mood for pizza, but I got up to follow her anyway. We walked into the kitchen and saw that the oven was still on, and the pizza was burning. I rushed towards the kitchen. The beeping coming from the oven reminded me that I had forgotten to turn it off. I knew it was too late by the time I got there, but I opened the oven anyways, just in time for a thick, black smoke to billow out and fill up my small apartment. I was standing there naked when the box burst into flames. I started yelling, "Fuck, fuck, oh shit." My date came running in, and she was also naked. I thought that I could pour water on it, but it was too late. The box was already on fire. The kitchen was full of sparks and burnt shit. My sink is so full of shit that I can't get the box in there. She yelled, "Bathtub." So I quickly picked up a box that was on fire and ran to the bathroom. I went past the carpet, shower mat, and shower curtain, all of which could have easily caught on fire. The entire top of the pizza box was either in flames or charred and flaking off as I ran. I remember we were both totally naked this whole time, so imagine a screaming man running through his apartment with a burning pizza box in his hands. That was me. This was a date. I put the box in the bathtub and turned the shower on. She was really understanding about it. She helped me clean everything up, and then we got dressed and just stood outside for a while. She could tell I was really scared and kept reassuring me everything was okay. Then we went back inside and I went down on her again. Then we had sex. We still hang out often and have a lot of fun together. I still have burn marks in my bathtub and on my bathroom door. Thank you for joining us in Lavender City. We are excited about all of these interesting things that await, so subscribe now and stay tuned.